What's up, everybody? Today we're going to take a look at two different movements that can sometimes be difficult in the home gym or garage gym. If you get some programming and you want to do the Olympic lifts, the clean and jerk and the full snatch, or full clean and jerk and full snatch. If you aren't feeling super proficient in those movements, we're going to look at a couple ways that you can kind of scale those movements a little bit, and then a couple things you can do to substitute those movements where you can keep them in the workout, still get the same stimulus, but change the movement just a little bit to accommodate your ability level. So the first movement we're going to look at is the full snatch. Okay, so pulling the barbell from the ground all the way to overhead while you're passing through the squat. Now, if you are not proficient in the overhead squat, you are not able to reach hip crease below the top of the knee depth with the bar overhead in a good overhead squat position, the movement that I'm going to have my athletes focus on is going to be a power snatch into a partial overhead squat. So this kind of breaks down the movement a little bit into a simpler form where we're still achieving the stimulus that we want, or close to the stimulus that we want from the movement. And it allows us to perform these two movements in a way that's going to increase our range of motion and hopefully get us to that full squat snatch eventually. So I'm going to probably decrease the loading for most of the workouts that are going to require the full snatch if you're performing this movement. But again, I'm going to focus on hitting my power snatch, so getting the bar overhead without dropping the hip crease below the top of the knee, establishing my good base in terms of getting my feet where I need them to get, and then drop down into a partial overhead squat where I can squat to, say, a 20 to 24 inch box. So I have some sort of target and have some sort of achievable standard that I'm going to do for that squat, and then stand back up. And that's going to count as my full squat snatch. It's important to note that when we're going to go down for that overhead squat, when we're breaking this down into two movements, the power snatch and the overhead squat, that we want to be able to keep our good points of performance in that overhead squat position. So the minute that we start to lose those, we want to go just above that in terms of the depth that we have to drop to. And we also don't want to add too much weight too quick if we're not achieving those good points of performance, even in a power snatch and overhead squat or partial overhead squat movement. If you do not have a barbell, or you are not at all comfortable with the barbell, then the kettlebell swing or the kettlebell snatch is going to be a great substitute for a full snatch. Okay, so what this is still going to enable you to do is you're going to be able to move a large load a long distance quickly. So we're going to take that kettlebell from the ground and either swing it overhead or snatch it overhead or swing it to eye level. Okay, so we're still hitting our rapid hip extension. We're still going to be catching weight or supporting weight overhead with our arms, which is a stimulus that you get from the full snatch, right? And we're just going to break the movement down a little bit for it to be a little bit simpler with a lot less weight. So for example, if the workout called for 5 full squat snatches at a particular weight, if I'm going to substitute the kettlebell, one of the main things that I'm going to do is perform 5 power snatches with one arm or alternating arms, and then I'm going to perform 5 goblet squats or a kettlebell front squat with the kettlebell. So that's going to give me both the pull off the ground and the squat to fulfill both the requirements that come from a full squat snatch. It's just going to break them down into simpler movements, but you're still going to achieve the stimulus that you need for the workout. Alternatively, if you are not comfortable with the kettlebell snatch, you can still perform a kettlebell swing to overhead. So 5 kettlebell swings into a 5 goblet squat as well. That's going to fulfill the requirements for that movement and give you the stimulus that you need broken down into a more simple movement. For the clean and jerk, we're going to do a very similar thing. Okay, so if you are not able to perform a full squat clean, or you are not comfortable with the movement, then the first thing we're going to do is go to a power clean, establish the bar in the front rack position, adjust our feet to a good front squat stance, and then a front squat. Okay, and then if the jerk is included in that as well, then jerk overhead, either push jerk, split jerk, push press, anything to get shoulder to overhead. But again, we're going to break down that movement into a power clean, into a front squat. That's going to count as your full squat clean in terms of scaling that movement and making it just a little bit easier on the athlete if they're not comfortable yet with a full squat clean. Now, even if the power clean is tough because an athlete has a very poor front rack position, I don't typically like teaching the squat clean, power clean, or power clean and jerk, or even thruster to an athlete who cannot rest the bar in their front rack position for those movements. whether it's for a front squat or for the clean and jerk. Reason being is if the athlete is holding the bar above their chest or above their shoulders, just in their hands, it's putting a lot of stress on their wrist. Now, if we compound that issue by trying to go into a front squat position, which pushes the chest forward, pushes the weight out further away from the center of mass, it's going to be even harder to hold that bar in the front rack, cause more stress on the wrists and the shoulders. And the movement can compound, that problem can compound even more when we go to put the bar overhead, where now we're doing a dynamic movement of the dip and drive with weight only sitting in our wrist and on our shoulders, or pulling on our shoulders rather than sitting on our torso, right? So if the athlete cannot establish a good front rack position for the squat clean, power clean, or clean and jerk, I'm probably going to move them to a kettlebell variation, where we're going to perform either a single or double kettlebell clean. Now, the reason that I'm going to do that is because the front rack position is much easier to achieve in terms of getting it into the right position than, say, a front rack position with a barbell. So what we're looking for when we get the kettlebell in the front rack position is that it's sitting in a pocket that our elbow or that our forearm is going to create between our shoulder. So the kettlebell can sit nicely in that pocket. It allows the athlete to still stimulate the core of their upper and lower back in terms of keeping the torso upright in the squat, in the jerk. It just doesn't require them to have a super flexible wrist or shoulder to achieve that front rack position. So when we're using the kettlebells, again, either a single or dumbbell or double kettlebell, what we can do is a kettlebell power clean into a front squat. Again, that's going to achieve the rep standard that we want to for the squat clean. It's going to achieve a very similar stimulus and allow us to do the movement much more safely than using a regular barbell. So if we're going to do 5 squat cleans or 5 power clean and jerks, and we're not going to use the barbell, we're going to perform a double or single kettlebell clean, front squat, and then perform the jerk. So again, we're going to break that movement down into different pieces. That's going to allow us to achieve the full range of motion, just broken down in a simpler way that an entry-level athlete can still achieve the stimulus and still achieve the standard of the movement. That's it for the technique session today. If you guys got any questions or comments, put them down in the comments below. Remember to like, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time.